See, there's a configure icon, and to the left of it, there's a little noise thing.
This one?
Down, left. See there?
Ah.
You got recordy, soundy.
Gotcha.
And if there's no soundy one there.
Speaking of that, Franco?
Hello.
You're fine. That's for the intro. Have we... Oh, we're streaming.
Yeah, I've done it. We're ready to go.
Well, we are going.
Oops. I only just did that.
You know how we always have 10 minutes of that crap at the beginning that everyone
I
keeps...
think my mic test was.
I bet.
Fucking superb.
This is all going out as well, by the way.
Frank doesn't care.
Franco does not care.
Christmas special.
Okay, welcome to the Christmas special, BAP.
I think we're. Have we got a theme song today?
Yeah, we have. Here it comes.
Hello, Australia, and welcome to the BAP, where unprofessionalism reigns supreme in broadcasting land.
I think we've outdone ourselves with our lack of professionalism this time.
It was pretty special.
We are broadcasting from the Happy Holidays bunker, where my...
Are you on holidays?
No, Happy Holidays bunker.
Okay, I was just checking.
But he
thought you
is.
might actually be on holiday.
I am also on holidays.
You fucker.
Where my co-hosts, Dean Claus and Krampus Jason, are waging their war on Christmas. Have you guys seen any news items that re the war on Christmas?
No, is it?
I saw Peter Dutton talking about it.
That's what I was fishing for.
Yep.
Okay.
He's a special guy.
So he was on a talk show this week. I didn't do any prep for this. I read the article during the week, but he was on a talk show, and a caller came in who was upset because a school, I believe it was in Queensland.
I think he was on 2GB, Radio 2GB. He always is.
Someone was ranting that they changed the lyrics of one of the Christmas songs at the end to have Happy Holidays.
We wish you a happy holiday, I think it was.
And apparently this school was waging a war on Christmas.
And
So
Christians.
this made Potato, it made his blood boil. His words exactly.
What was the casualty count?
4 Noels, 3 elves, and a Prancer.
Rest in peace, Prancer.
But obviously, because Peter Dutton likes to shoot from the hip and not do any sort of research, just from the hip, didn't sort of assume perhaps the credibility of this random caller to the radio station might not be as infallible as right-wing radio would have you believe. He shot from the hip, believing it's all about political correctness gone mad. It's like a little parrot, Peter. You can just bring out those little propaganda slogans.
And let me guess, someone fact-check the caller, did they? Or?
No. But I...
So did they check it up and turn out? No, it didn't happen.
This is 2GB, Jason.
Okay.
It took me a while to actually dig up any sort of comments from the school, and the closest thing I could get to was a journalist who did a bit of a search and found that that school had been doing plenty of Christmasing and caroling, and I couldn't get to the reason why this particular in the school event they changed the words. I don't know if they had a specific agenda item for the war on Christmas, or was this just some not doff the hat for
So
inclusion?
they cherry-picked one particular instance where it could prove their specific point, and they completely ignored the month-long Noelling and caroling that happened before.
I kind of feel like men's rights activists and Christians have a lot in common these days. Like all of a sudden people are trying to take back a little equality from them. They're like, but I'm supposed to be in charge. It's hilarious to watch these groups as they're like, this is unfair. I'm being oppressed. You're not being oppressed. You are in no way oppressed. You are doing just fine.
Their bar for oppression is incredibly low when it comes to themselves, isn't it?
It really surprisingly is. They're not being locked up on Nauru. They're not being kept in cells. This is not oppression.
They're having their video games reviewed from a feminist bent, and apparently that's oppression. Or
how dare they? Why is the woman out of the kitchen playing video games?
Exactly.
So we had a little bit of a diversion there from our normal procession of content of the show. So
we normally have a douchebag filter.
So we swing back. I'm doing the circular motion with my hand.
Okay.
Open hand.
He's doing more of a triangle motion, Australia.
Douchebag
Some sort
filter.
of communist triangle.
Well, on another of the host's recommendations, I went back and revisited The Man in the High Castle, and was very happy to say it's excellent.
Yeah, the pilot really doesn't do it justice.
No, the pilot. In fact, probably the second episode as well didn't really do much for it.
Yeah, it took me.
But
a
then
while
after
to get
that,
hooked.
really lifts.
Well, it's weird the way they did it. They did the 2 shows with no guarantee that it would be picked up to carry on. So I suppose it's very difficult to plan out how you're going to do a season when you don't know if you.
And so perhaps those first few episodes were heavily studio noted.
Well,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Hey, it has a lot in common with the books, but then the end of it, it's very much not like I couldn't work it out. I don't
See, I've never read the books, so
I think I spoiled it last week when I said Hitler's the man in the high castle. That's the bit I didn't get because I did not see that coming because he's an author in the book.
Hitler's an author.
No. The man in the high castle is an author, just an ordinary author writing a book.
Isn't that a bit of a myth? The book's not very.
Well, even the TV show is not clear on who it is because what's the name?
Jason, he's in a castle in the fucking mountains watching videos about alternate histories.
Yeah, but there's anher guy who's not quite in a castle. He's more in a shed out the back of somewhere who's also watching this.
Yeah, he's just smoking weed. He's high in a different way.
There you go. Is it a metaphorical high or?
I don't know. I'm banging on Hitler.
A very real high.
And Hitler in this is not like your regular Hitler. He's a very
bit more of a bro?
Informed Hitler. He's a benevolent Hitler.
He seemed, as I said, woke Hitler. It seems almost.
Okay.
Yes. He seems to be wanting peace and blah. Oh, spoiler alert, people. Hitler's in this show. Yeah, there's various things.
But that's very apparent from the first episode. There's no mystery about it.
There are Nazis in the first. It's very obvious.
Nazis. Yes.
And this is where I've only seen the first 2 episodes because that's all I was able to get to. But whereas I think your criticism was you weren't quite into the plot so much. Whereas I was just so intrigued about how they visualised a post-war scenario where the Axis powers won.
Yeah, the first 2 episodes, it's basically just this little world alternate history, but then it just really starts opening up and more things.
Yeah, it just seems a little bit formulaic in those.
The world
first
becomes
few
richer.
episodes. It doesn't, and you're right. Then it starts getting the Japanese cast more involved, and there's more back in the with the Obergruppenführer.
Yes,
back in his family, and you see what family life's back in the eastern states of America under Nazi rule.
I love the way it's because it's 1962 is the year. It took me. I had to look that up because I was like, I'm not sure when this is set, but there's all these like bits of like when they're in the neutral zone, there's all these sort of 50s elements and stuff, and then when they're in Japan, like everyone's wearing kind of drab grey clothes, but they're kind of like mods from London, like with their outfit style. Like it's really hard to work out when it is, but it's I just love the way they do this play on history. It's really cool. And what gave it away ultimately was the at the end when the Japanese guy time shifts and he reads a newspaper and you're like, oh right, yeah, of course.
I don't know where that comes in. So now towards the end of the season, it starts to shift into more of a science fiction kind of how do things work. It's not just a static history or something. Perhaps there's
those videos that they watch. They're collecting all these videos and then. They show. I think they show you 3 videos over the course of the first season, and each one is from a different alternate reality.
Oh, at a slightly different time
period. So like, it's really cool. So the first one seems to be from our reality.
Yeah.
It shows the fall of Germany, and then the second one is a Soviet propaganda video, and then the third video they show you is
supposedly in the near future.
Yeah,
when
near future,
San Francisco
being nuked.
Yeah,
and there are. And so it's really cool. There's all these sci-fi elements leaking in now, which makes it more compelling for me.
Little bitty details about you notice that and they walk into a Japanese hybrid mix.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Watched season 2 of Mr. Robot after being very not as fond of that second season.
Or not to
Have you watched it?
I haven't watched the second season.
It's not as good.
I am looking for more stuff to watch.
Mind you, I had that same issue with Breaking Bad. And I got through it and I was like, it's the same fucking thing. Repeated over and over, kind of. They get to a point, shit fucks up, they go to the desert, they make shit fucks up, they go to the desert, like
making meth fixes everything.
It doesn't fix anything. and Mr. Robot has a similar sort of they reuse the same kind of story patterns a bit. There's some interesting new characters added, which I quite liked. And it's not terrible, it's just nowhere near as good as the first season.
Yeah. I revisited Fear the Walking Dead. So I watched
season 2 of that.
No, first. So what happened was
the one with the bad acting.
Terrible.
I watched the first episode and I was like, eh. And then I'm signed up for Presto, and it's part of Presto package. So I went back to watching it, and I'm sort of enjoying it at the moment. I'm not necessarily.
I don't mind Fear the Walking Dead.
I like the exploration of
that Juggernaut's son's acting is terrible in the pilot.
Annoying.
It's okay.
It's still pretty bad.
That gets solved.
He's pretty much modelled. Yeah, I hope so, because he's pretty much modelled his persona on Johnny Depp.
Yeah, he gets his issue gets resolved.
Good.
As
I think
many things get
only the way The Walking Dead can resolve things, I'm guessing.
So, but I do like the way they're looking at a situation where the government's trying to control the situation. Well, that's what I'm led to
Well, that's
believe.
the bit we missed from that first from The Walking Dead was watching everything break down kind of thing. So there's still elements of the government around at this point, and I mean even the Mexican military is still in existence and stuff like that. Because I don't know where are you up to in Fear the Walking Dead?
I'm only 4 episodes in. So the part I've gone up to is they're caged in their little suburb there.
Okay, yeah.
So the military's still around, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen the first season. I haven't watched the second one yet. I do intend to watch it, but
One day.
I reckon the second season's all right, actually. I finished watching I'm up to date with The Walking Dead.
I'm not watching it anymore.
Yeah, well, that's heavy going. It's some heavy lifting in this second season. They've come to the finale, the mid-season finale, because you know they break their seasons up. And it's just been really heavy lifting and in a way that's kind of amusing because it's
heavy lifting because it's full of awesome action and lots of things are happening.
No, there's not much action, but there's
just... Oh, how unsurprising. The Walking Dead opens with this mid-season finale with nothing happening up until it.
It has been maintaining a sense of brutality in that because Negan is the big bad for this season and he is just brutalizing people and he's got Rick completely broken, a broken man. You've never seen Rick this broken before. And everyone's sort of under the thumb.
At the prison, talking to his wife on a phone.
Yeah. That was pretty broken.
He was still a bloodthirsty killer at that point, though. Now he's just a broken man who will carry his oppressor's barbed wire bat around with him and hand it off to him when he needs it. It's a different Rick. Very different Rick. Yeah. Anyway, it's mid-season finale. You get the sense something big is on the horizon, but you always do with The Walking Dead, don't you?
Normally they actually have something big happen at that mid-season finale, though. Like something happens and there's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I mean, there was some climax in the episode and everything, but really it was a slow burn for the whole 8 episodes, as Walking Dead tends to do. But you're right, normally they cut the slow burn at about episode 6.
Yeah, they give you something for your time. But again, I'm done with that show. Did you guys see Star Wars yet?
No, it's on the agenda.
Well, I won't spoil anything.
Well, you can tell us about who dressed up when they went there.
I didn't dress up, but there was a lot of people dressed up. I went to the midnight show on Wednesday when it opened. Don't let me do that again. I'm too old for this shit. I'm like Murtaugh. So I got home at 3 a.m. and then went to work. But there was a whole bunch of people there dressed up as Jedis. There was a guy with like a portable DJ set of decks, and he was like playing Star Wars themed techno, and all these Jedis were dancing around with lightsabers like they were glow sticks, and it was like this little rave happening beforehand, which was amazing. And then we watched the film.
Enjoyed?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got trouble in that first act. It gets better. Like you can tell they had some script issues, and
some serious editing went on.
They've done some interesting stuff with. They've got a few people who are completely CG, people, not aliens. And there's a bit of an uncanny valley thing going on. Not everyone gets it, but for me, I really had a hard time believing that Grand Moff Tarkin was real.
I watched a couple of reviews, and one of them did talk about something where they CG. Yeah, it was clearly someone CG'd, and they could have managed it better.
They should have just done a new actor. It's Grand Moff Tarkin, so Peter Cushing's dead.
So it's meant to be young.
He's dead. No, it's the same time period as A New Hope. It's just the actor's dead, so they couldn't get him back. And they didn't want to recast the role. Okay, so they've used this CG version of him, which in some scenes looks fine, and in other scenes it doesn't, and it's really kind of distracting. But then there's other bits where they have these fake CG people, and they're fucking wonderful. Like they've got because it's the same fleet from earlier in the piece. Every now and then you'll see someone who's from A New Hope, like they have the Red Leader of in the X-wing, and he's the same. It's the same. Like it looks like the guy from A New Hope, and they have Gold Leader in the Y-wings, and it's the same. It's amazing.
But I actually, and they did comment on this, how they're using CG in this way. They talked about Ant-Man, and it's easy to take an existing actor, model them with CG, and then smooth out or wrinkle them up or whatever it is they do to age them, because they did some amazing stuff with Michael Douglas in Ant-Man and stuff like that.
Right.
But I guess when you haven't got the actor there to model it off at all.
No, and they recreated Arnie in one of the Terminator movies. You know, they made like a young version of Arnie as a Terminator walking around and stuff. And they did Paul Walker from Fast and the Furious 7. He died partway through, and they did some of his scenes in CG. So they definitely can do it, and it's not bad. It's just it was. I kept being like jolted out every now and then by something not being quite right.
Something's not right.
But there was also so many cameos in that film, like so many, like a lot of fan service.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which was good. Yeah, at times. Like there was a bit really early on where and the fucking music, man. It wasn't scored by John Williams. So there's this bit where Jimmy Smits walks out as Bail Organa. Not a spoiler. It's like the first 5 minutes. And then the fucking Star Wars theme sort of plays subtly in the background. It's like, yeah, I know who that is. Like, I get that is a like, why are you doing that right now when he just comes through a crowd? It was just really, it bugged me.
Just pop out, go, hey, walk off.
Yeah, and he didn't even get any lines. Like, he just walked forwards through a crowd. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool that, they've got the people back in. And he has some other lines later. But so some of it makes sense. It's good to see Bail Organa there with the Resistance because he was there and alive and Alderaan hasn't been destroyed, and that's kind of cool. And then there's other cameos where, the pig-faced guy and his walrus-faced guy, the buddy that Obi-Wan has a fight with in the bar and cuts someone's arm off, they fucking show up in the film. Just like, they get in a street fight with someone, and it's those fucking guys. Like, what the fuck are they doing?
Causing trouble again. That's what they're doing.
And I know he's wanted on 12 systems, but like, why does this have to be one of those 12 systems?
Well, it has to be. He's a busy man if he's wanted on 12 systems. He's got to be making himself.
So, some of the, so that was one of the cameos that bugged me. There was an R2D2 and C3PO one, which is like, what? I get that they're droids, but why the fuck do they even need screen time? Some of the cameos were good and they added to the story. Others were just like, you're just doing this for the sake of it.
Pure fan service, yeah.
And Darth Vader kicks ass in a really good way. Satisfying.
That's what I've heard. That's probably the main reason why I want to go and see the movie.
When he was actually massively awesome.
No, this is literally set. This movie goes... It's probably about a month before A New Hope, and it ends right at the start of A New Hope. But it goes all the way through to the point where Darth Vader's Star Destroyer is chasing the Tantive, which has Princess Leia on board. And that's when it ends. And you're like, fuck, this is really cool. Like, this is literally that opening scroll. And you get a bigger sense of the war. It's really kind of cool.
Nice. Alrighty. Newsies. What you got, boys?
Well, I could launch into a fairly dry white paper about the...
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go straight from douchebag buffer into something dry, and you can close out on something more entertaining. So, you guys, if you watch any TV in WA at the moment, you probably notice there's a lot of advertising around
Anti-National Party ads?
Yeah, around the against that tax, the $5 a ton rent lease, or what?
Isn't it interesting how companies like to point out that if you tax something, people will stop doing it? Like income tax. None of us want to work because of income tax. It doesn't fucking stop you doing something.
It was good. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of this, and I thought, I don't know. I didn't know what their arguments against it were, but then I think it was an article you forwarded on to me, had a little link out to the Australia Institute. And I went, I have to check what this source is for the article. I think it was the one about the ABC that you forwarded on to us.
Probably.
I checked it out, and sure enough, they're actually not like one of those right-wing think tanks. If anything, they're probably a little more progressive-leaning, if anything. But they had this excellent sort of appraisal of that resource tax that's just come out now, that Brendan Grills is pushing. So the WA National Party leader, Brendan Grills, has proposed raising the existing mining lease rental from 25 cents a tonne, that's what it currently is, to $5 a tonne.
Doesn't seem like a lot. They're really up in arms. They're spending a lot of money to fight that.
They are spending heaps of money.
And the interesting part about his $4.75 raise on tax is it's only in place until the federal government starts giving Western Australia back more of the GST share. He's just talking about...
Yeah, they were talking about that. Yeah, trying to... But
so if these companies pressure the federal government to fix things, Brendan Grills will never impose a tax.
Yeah. The interesting thing is they're also very misleading in how they're presenting what this tax is going to be and how it's going to affect things.
Brazil's going to take our economy.
Yeah, apparently. But it's only... The tax will only be levied on mines that are older than 15 years old. So they're established mines that are producing in their prime, essentially.
Yep, making profit. They pay themselves off.
So, and it's going to add $5 per ton to the
475.
or 475 to each ton of iron ore. And these mines that it will be affecting currently produce around between $15 and $20 it costs them per ton to produce, and they sell for between $47 to $52 per ton. So it's going to add $5 to that, take $5 off that margin that they currently get. So they're currently making about $25, quite often about $20 per ton, just pure profit. Yep. That's almost 100% profit, essentially. But they're making it sound like this will shut down the mining industry in WA, and they'll just move elsewhere because apparently no one wants to take $15 per ton as profit. Apparently that's not good enough.
I understand. Look, and I welcome them leaving if that's the way they feel about it.
They also, so the minerals consultancy over here, the lobbying crew, actually engaged Deloitte to do a report on this, and even Deloitte's report couldn't really argue against the tax as such. They couched their words very carefully, and they said it will cause a loss of jobs eventually because it would possibly make mines that, when they reach the end of their productive life cycle,
it might reach the end sooner.
Slightly sooner, like a year earlier or something like that. Or they might have to renegotiate the rate or something like that. So the loss of jobs is actually completely negligible. The Australian cost per tonne for iron ore is still well below the international average. It's still cheaper than just about anywhere else except for perhaps Brazil, which they're already going to go to Brazil and produce anyway. So, but apparently they're just going to keep spending money on this until they try to get it cancelled. I mean,
they've already fought the same thing under Kevin Rudd and they won, so they're probably emboldened by that.
It's not quite the same thing. I mean, even this report said an ideal tax would be an actual tax on the profit. That's the ideal way to impose this. But because they've already fought that battle and lost it, they're bringing this in, which isn't an ideal tax, but it will act essentially as a profit tax anyway, because you're only imposing it on profitable mines. And sorry.
I think it's really interesting that they see that they fought that battle and lost it, and therefore they can't fight it again. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not indeed? And I mean, you go through the list of companies. On BHP produce its cost of production for 1 tonne is $18.84. Rio Tinto produces at $14 per tonne, and they're all selling it, and it's even projected out through to 2020 as being almost $50 a tonne sometimes for the iron ore that's being produced. So it's massive profits, and they just don't want to share any of it at all.
It's more that the mining industry has drawn a red line on any tax. So basically, they will not. So this is the mining industry's position on this tax is not based on the merits of the tax. They basically will fight any tax.
Of course,
they see it as a domino effect.
Cool.
You let one tax go through,
when you're talking
the floodgate.
When you're talking
in Australia, it'll happen elsewhere.
When you're talking
even within Australia, you sort of embolden states and the federal government to even go in their minds to go after more. So for them, it's a red line. They fight any tax.
And whatever millions they're spending on advertising.
This is why we should be pushing to nationalise the mines, and as a fallback position, we'll tax you.
That was Comrade Dean.
Yeah. We're going to nationalise mines. Like, you can't do that. And we're like, well, we're just going to tax you a bit. And they'll be like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, anyone with guts would throw that kind of stuff around, wouldn't they? But no, they're just not going to do it. I mean, the $5.
I actually think Brendan Grills is showing a bit of courage here, though. Like, I don't normally have a lot of time for the guy. He's not a terrible leader, but I don't hold a lot of the same positions as him. But this is actually an area where I think he's probably doing the right thing.
But here's the problem that our governments have when they try to introduce these kinds of things. They can spend millions and millions of dollars on advertising against it, which will win over middle class Australia, namely some people that I know. And yet, because a $5 per tonne tax is they're talking even conservatively, even allowing for losing some GST, $300 million or something like that in a year or something. So it's significant. They can just throw money at this issue. And
the bit about this that annoys me the most, though, is the West Australian Labor Party is fighting this as well.
Fighting the tax.
They're coming out as being against this mining tax. It's like, really? Like,
how the fuck are they even nominally a Labor Party?
Sometimes when the guy who's on the opposition team to you comes up with an idea, you work with them.
Pure tribalism.
It seems to be just tribalism, yeah. But sometimes you work with them because it's the right thing. and it's the right thing for our state. And our state is hideously in debt.
Even in the USA, where there's lefties saying if Trump comes to the show on some particular issues, they'll work with him on those kinds of things. And Trump's essentially the Antichrist when it comes to most people. So.
Well, I mean, that's what politics is supposed to be about, the art of what's possible. Not the ideal solution, but what you can do today.
Wow.
But all these people just opposing for the sake of opposing.
Why would you vote for
just
the
piss me
fucking
off.
Labour Party if they're going to oppose something
Well,
like
I
this?
didn't, Jason.
No.
I voted for Colin Barnett.
I didn't vote for the Labour Party either. I'm just wondering about people that do.
Well, where did your vote go eventually? It has to trickle down somewhere. Mine went to Colin.
No, yours went directly to Colin.
Directly to Colin.
It trickled down eventually via the Liberal Party to Colin.
Yeah.
I wanted my football stadium.
You got it, all right.
I know,
got
it's good, it's good.
Which way are you voting next time? Are they going to offer you something else? And what's your price next time, Dean?
I don't know. I felt really bad when he did those drum lines against the Sharks. That was like my poison. I was like, that's at least partly my
especially when he named one of the drum lines after you.
Yeah, the Dean Carruthers Memorial drum line. Yeah, that's a problem.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for
killing all those sharks, buddy.
Thanks for your
And the
contribution
turtles.
to our democracy, Dean.
I saw a. Are we done on this one?
Yeah.
I saw an interesting little snippet in the news that One Nation, those fun-loving guys, are going to field 36 candidates in the next Queensland election.
They'll probably win some in Queensland.
Very scary. Queensland has 86 seats, so that's nearly half.
I saw she was talking to some people over here about finding some candidates for WA, some more candidates for WA.
They'll probably win some here too. I don't agree with what they stand for, but
I know people that I think I know one family member who voted for them.
I know people that voted for him as well, and they're open and they're proud about it. And
the problem is, you ask people that you know where they voted. You get you're finding out things you don't really want to know.
I don't normally ask this person. He volunteered this information. He was proud of it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the same person that says about this mining tax. He says, if that mining tax comes in, you watch the jobs just fly out of Australia. And I'm going like, why? Where are they? Where are they going?
This is where my income tax argument can be brought to play.
It's not happening.
So anytime someone taxes someone, they stop doing it, right? So income tax prevents you from working. Oh, it doesn't?
They're only taxing profit. I mean, it's not. They're not taking money from. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and in real terms, how much are we underwriting the whole mining industry? The amount of tax breaks, how much they draw on
but in this case,
infrastructure
they're
and so
mining. In this case, just to bring it back to this, they're actually taxing established mines that have. They're not building those mines. They're already at low operating costs because they've essentially automated most of the system they can anyway. It's not. There's no jobs lost there. They're going to keep producing at the same rate.
Well, I mean, the good. I hope. Here's my great hope: is that because Brendan Grills was brought back in to lead the National Party by the National Party, they didn't like whoever the hell was in charge before. I can't remember right now. And they decided they wanted to return back to the old leadership. And when he came back, this was what he came back with. And he's a pretty popular guy amongst his party, so I'm hoping he explained to his constituents and at least not lose ground on it. I don't think he's ever going to win the votes in the city. People don't vote Nationals in the city. It's not going to cost them votes if he can shore up his base.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because there's a downturn in the mining industry as it is, they're just going to. Everyone who works in that industry will see this. Well, this can only be worse for the mining industry, and will immediately assume that will create more
downturn's
hardship.
happening anyway, regardless of.
It's going to get worse regardless.
I mean, technically, if anyone comes with that taxation argument, apparently they got tax relief.
Yeah,
and it still went. So why don't we just tax them more and see what happens?
Well, I mean, we can try that.
Well, I mean, the report. This actually went into where the money would be spent. They were talking about where the money raised by this would be spent, and by taking that money from raw profits, it would actually create jobs, because they'd be spending on infrastructure and stuff like that. There was this infrastructure development they were talking about applying the money to. So instead of being taken off and just granted as profits to shareholders and things who don't spend that money like that, it would create jobs in itself.
The other bigger problem with this, though, is I think Colin Barnett's a bit on the nose with the average West Australian voter. I don't think that the Nationals will be in a position to govern unless they make a coalition with Labor, maybe.
And Labor's against it. Maybe
I haven't seen any plans from the Ben White is the Shadow Treasurer. I haven't seen any plans from them as to how they plan to pay back the deficit that Colin has built up, and our GST cut of the GST revenue is not changing anytime soon. So maybe
Yeah.
they're going to have to embrace something like this themselves.
I might actually be tempted to draft a letter to my local government, my local representative, to see what they have got, if they've got anything to fucking say on it. Because I haven't heard their argument against the tax, unless they're just towing the line of the mineral resources industry.
Yeah, maybe they will. It's an interesting position to be in anyway.
They probably don't want to stir the mining resources industry beast that will start advertising against them.
Well, there's no one left.
They're also, I think,
If they're advertising against the Nationals, Liberals, and Labor, maybe it's just it's a dead heat. It doesn't really matter.
well, that's the thing. Like if Labor had have actually backed their mineral resources tax, super profits tax, whatever it is, if the state Labor government backed the federal one, which they fucking should because it's the right thing to do, they wouldn't have any wiggle room. But because there's this dissension in the ranks and they can sort of play them against each other, the mining companies come out on top, and the average Australian continues to pay taxes to pay back debts that basically don't get much for.
Got
But,
a bell tower. And a key.
No, that was beforehand. The
Oh,
key.
got a
Look at the
key.
key.
I remember
The key's not finished, Frank.
there's a journalist friend of mine was attending the Axe the Tax rally that happened in the city when that was coming up, and she actually commented. She said, "I've never seen so many suits at a protest rally." She said it was all suits with prefabricated signs.
Yeah. I think the head of Rio sent an email to his staff about the national
To
plan
go,
for
yeah.
tax. Yeah, like
I bet he did.
if this goes through, jobs will go.
They've been going at Rio anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It's
it's
rich.
bullshit. They don't, and as this report showed, they can't apply it in an actual rational argument. It doesn't play out the way they say.
No, but they just want to influence voters.
Mm.
I actually think that's a bit wrong to try and influence voters that way. I'm not sure, but it doesn't sit well with me.
Freedom of speech.
I know it's freedom of speech,
But
but
allowed to say what he wants.
it's a bit of a dick move.
So we've mentioned Barney, Dean's favourite character, which sort of segues into what I'm going to talk about. This will in no way hurt Premier Colin Barnett, but it's worth mentioning because I thought...
Why are you trying to hurt Colin Barnett?
I'm not trying to hurt Colin. He's doing a good enough job on his own on that front. I think, as we've sort of mentioned, him trying to privatise
Western Power.
Western Power's going to hurt him big time. But this is...
It's also he didn't want to do it to start with. Like he's been talking about not doing. Are we talking about Western Power at all today?
Might as well. I can segue back into this because we're talking about Barney.
I mean, Colin for the longest time has been talking around how it's the wrong thing to do. We shouldn't be doing this. And now he's at the point where he's so desperate for money that they're willing to sell 51% of it, which is interesting. They're selling a controlling interest.
Knowing that his base cannot stand the idea of privatisation of...
But they've already privatised certain sections. They carved off parts of Western Power at times and privatised them off. So
and now they're
technically Western Power remained in government hands, but then the retailing section of it was carved off and given to someone, and the billing... So they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting to see. I think it's not going to float. I mean, at least he's taking it to an election to see if people will back him for it. I don't think it'll be a popular move.
No, even middle class Australia that I know has been against it. Yeah, everyone knows what privatisation usually means.
More
Ultimately, higher prices, yeah. And worse service usually as well.
And eating away at the revenue of the state.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that, but I mean, Telstra's provided wonderful services since they were privatised.
I think we should advertise the conflict of interest to this guy.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Dean is an employee of Telstra.
So this week, the coroner's report came out on what happened with the death in custody of Miss Yu, a 22-year-old Yamanji woman. So 2 years ago, 2014, she died under horrendous circumstances. So she was... now, they haven't been able to sustain, was she taken into custody when... So basically, she was held because she had $3,000 in outstanding fines for trivial offences, like swearing at a police officer, and that's, being an obstruction, that sort of stuff. And at the moment, if you can't pay your fines, you have to stay in jail to pay them off, basically. You do time in the local lockup. But I wasn't able to sustain if she was, held after she actually called up about her partner abusing her. But that will come into play as why she found herself dying in the end.
So does that essentially mean we have debtors' prisons here? If you can't pay a fine, you go to jail.
Are you alarmed about that? I'm more alarmed about the fact that she had outstanding fines for swearing at a police officer. That shouldn't be finable. I don't care.
I agree. I'm just worried about the ultimate result of what happens and apparently get put in jail.
So anyway, back to the story. She was locked up, but she was complaining about
Internal
being in
pains,
pain,
yeah.
and that she had broken ribs. And so in the end, the police thought she was faking it. So they took her twice to the hospital. And so she was held for over 3 days. So over this 3-day period, she was taken twice to the hospital, where she was discharged back into police custody. And then you may have seen the footage of how when in the final day, when they finally took her to the hospital, she was actually couldn't move. She was complaining she couldn't feel her body. You see horrendous footage of the police dragging her off the bed, where she slams into the ground and knocks her head on the ground. They drag her to a police vehicle, handcuffs, to where they can take her to the hospital, where even when they took her there, police were claiming that she was still faking it. She was actually having a heart attack and dying from septicemia.
Yeah.
Wow. So
The broken rib was nothing to do with the police. It was actually her partner who assaulted
but she'd been
her.
taken to hospital twice and discharged.
Yes, because the hospital were prematurely diagnosing her with behavioural problems and sending her back with painkillers.
So I mean, we can ultimately blame the police for the final result.
But it's a combination.
There's
of the
obviously some
hospital
negligence
and
in
the
the
police.
I think it
hospital as
depends.
well.
Though. If a cop brings someone in and he's like, "Look, I got this prisoner. They're complaining. We're pretty sure they're faking." It possibly influences the
Absolutely, but
clinical decisions. It
but
shouldn't,
still,
but in this instance, it seems like it may have.
Well, she told the hospital staff she had broken ribs, but they discharged her as having behavioural issues. So
Wow.
I mean, this is an appalling result, and I'm sort of giving short shrift to all that had happened, because the part I want to focus on is Barney, his comments on it. So, he saw the report.
2 + 2 is 4.
And he said he found the footage confronting.
Yeah, it's pretty confronting.
And continued. But I can also say, now there's an old adage that the test of whether you're a racist or not is,
Ignore
I'm not a
everything called
racist, but generally
if
that's
you
a
hear
good
that, then
indication.
you're going to see
You're
something.
about to-
You're going to hear
You're
something.
about to say something racist. So, but I can also say, while that should never happen, and I don't excuse it, there was a difficult situation that the police were facing then. A lot of aggression and the like. So don't excuse or condone what happened. But, now, he's not going to excuse it, but then he's going to proceed to excuse it in the same sentence.
Yeah.
I also think we need to have some acknowledgement of the reality of the situation the police officers face. So he's basically doing the nod, wink, dog whistle. The Aboriginal communities up there are very violent towards the police officers. Wink, wink, nod, nod. You know what I mean? Because he didn't really want to come out and admonish the police. The press who were there asked. Colin did not respond to reporters if he was suggesting Miss Dew had been aggressive. She hadn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can expect anything better from a police force that has had a royal inquest into the Aboriginal deaths in custody and resulted in doing nothing about it.
Well, I think the problem here is
They
Barney could have
ignored
handled this in different ways. Obviously, he didn't want to admonish the police, and that's a whole other argument you can have. But he could have handled this. Basically, he went and said, "Oh, that's the way the Aboriginal community is, and what are you going to do?"
But that's the attitude of the police as well.
Well, that's shocking that it's coming from our premier, and this isn't plastered all over the news. It's like, everyone just goes.
I think as much as the police have a duty of care to look after the prisoners, I'm also would like to see something come into play. Like, I'm assuming there'll be some recommendations coming out of this.
There's 11
That
recommendations.
the hospital have a minimum duty of care, which involves investigating. If someone says they've got broken ribs, you have to investigate.
But this is the point. They've had royal commissions into this, and they've done nothing about it. They've done nothing about these
Well,
things.
look what the premier said. That doesn't suggest that he's really that worried about implementing these things. Don't condone it.
They've
but,
had recommendations come out of royal commissions that they completely ignored. It's like some other recommendations.
He could have done a much more flatter statement. Said, "I'm very concerned about this, and I want our police better trained and hospital staff to be better trained to handle these situations." Not casting any blame, rather than this dog whistle of going, "No, that's." The nod they had to white Australia, that's just the way they are. What are you going to do? He's almost saying the police are victims of the situation.
He trumped it up a little bit.
People are doing that lately.
And I mean, I find it hard to believe that these police officers, one can imagine they do face a lot of difficult situations that probably
Absolutely, but
taints the way they approach
It's
any
certainly a job I
situation.
wouldn't want.
but
to
they're
do.
meant to be held to a higher
But
standard than the rest of us. They should be.
I'd find it hard to believe they could watch how they behaved in this situation, and not feel some guilt of, wow, I really should have handled that differently. The videos it shows you have one policewoman lecturing this woman about how she communicates the pain she's feeling, like she's talking to a child. So,
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
so we're not getting good leadership from our leaders on
Yeah.
this thing. There's a known problem with deaths in
You
custody
may
and so
find,
forth.
though, Colin, he's a good man. It's reasons why I voted for him. Drumlines notwithstanding. He might just
Or
be presenting a
Aboriginals
unified,
deaths in
he
custody
might
with
just be
them.
presenting a unified front, like to the media. I'm not going to talk about this, but internally, there'll be recommendations coming out of this. Maybe he'll put his mate Troy Boswell on the case. He's got a good relationship with the cops. Always seeing him crashing into things, drink driving. You know what he's like.
Police minister.
Yeah, he's great. So speaking of police being violent, have you guys seen the news coming out of the Philippines?
I've seen Duterte bragging about how he used to cruise around on a motorcycle looking for people to shoot,
Yeah.
alleged drug dealers.
Yeah, he did. He did that. This
Sort
is,
of walked.
firstly, the death toll since he took office on July 1st has just crossed 6,000 people. 6,095 people are dead of, I'm going to say executions. I'm going to go with executions.
Extrajudicial.
Extrajudicial executions relating to his war on drugs. But
What's the bet
Press
this guy's
conference.
a heavy drug user?
you go,
Funny
interesting
you
you
mention
mentioned that. So in a press conference, I think it was in Cambodia, he was talking to people and he was bragging that while he was the mayor of Davao City, he personally killed drug suspects. He used to cruise around on a motorcycle looking for trouble, cruising for a kill. 3 people allegedly he's killed, himself personally. He also
Choked them out, isn't it?
he also admitted at the time that he, very ironically, has or used to take very strong painkillers, fentanyl, for his migraines. Now, fentanyl is a synthetic opiate that they normally give to cancer patients.
Yeah, it's like
Highly
homophobes.
addictive.
It's like homophobes, right? I reckon you scratch the surface, and I mean they're usually gay. So I reckon he's a hardcore drug user, and he's just
Well, yeah.
overcompensating.
So he took the time to point out to the media conference that he doesn't have cancer. Don't worry about that. He's not got. He's taking cancer drugs, but he doesn't have cancer. And as soon as his GP found out that he was abusing them, he was supposed to take a quarter of a tablet a day, and he was taking 2 whole tablets. As soon as his GP found out he was doing that, he's not allowed to have them anymore. He's been taken off. That's drug abuse. He's not allowed to abuse the drugs. So he's not taking them anymore.
But apparently at that point he should have been executed, correct?
Well, he probably should have been shot in the head.
Yeah.
He probably should have been doing it. But look, he wasn't. So he did, however, come out and tell people he has Buerger's disease. Buerger's disease, not Buerger's disease. He's not eating too many burgers. He's Buerger's disease, which is pain in your extremities, usually caused by smoking. Like it's a cardiovascular issue. So he's in a lot of pain all the time. And he's got some spinal
And of course
issues of his
needs,
spine.
needs some
Some
hardcore drugs for that as well,
Well,
apparently.
yeah, no. So he said, oust me, fine. Assassinate me, better. I have this fucking headache all the time anyway. Which I thought was an interesting way to sum that up. Yes, I've been abusing drugs and killing people. What are you going to do about it? Oust me? Fucking bring it on. You going to execute me? Come on, bitches. My motorcycle's waiting. He also took aim at the rich in his country, the bleeding heart rich, and the Catholic Church, who had been calling for rehabilitation instead of murder. He said he called them sons of bitches, and charged that they all know full well that there's just nowhere for these people to go. There is no rehabilitation centres, and we can't afford to run them even if we had them. He then suggested, somewhat interestingly, that they perhaps open up their doors and allow the addicts to be treated by them. Adopt an addict was a policy on the run decision he came up with, and just see how far they get with that before he comes on his motorcycle and executes them. And then back home, George Christensen, everyone loves George Christensen, Queensland Nationals MP and ballsack, really. He took this week to the media to praise the work being done by Mr. Duterte. On Facebook, he said, a leader who personally sees off drug dealers, where's the problem with that? George Christensen couldn't even fit on a Harley Davidson. They're not big enough. His PR team obviously then had a chat with him, and he took to it again. I'd say he would like to see greater penalties for drug producers and traffickers because we've had our namby-pamby war on drugs here in the West, and it's been a complete failure. He then took to defending Rodrigo Duterte to say there have been notable incidents of vigilante action, but no more so than under any previous administrations in the Philippines. That's a lie. 6,000 people in a month, that's quite a large number. And it's actually above norm, George. But anyway,
Don't let facts get in the way.
Why would you? You're a Nationals MP
Or
from
your
Queensland.
Christian orthodoxy get in the way of you either.
Yeah. Thou shalt not kill unless they're a drug dealer, in which case Jesus obviously says bust a cap in their ass.
Yeah, I've always found that amazing with the right-wing Christians about how they can sort of reconcile or put aside their Christian values when it suits them.
Yeah, love thy neighbour.
They cherry
Love
pick
thy
what they
neighbour
want
by
out of
putting them in a cage on Nauru.
They're very, what do you call it? Old text.
Yeah. Well, even then they're not. They're totally in violation of the commandments. They just ignore the shit that doesn't resonate with what they're doing because they're good guys. Good guys like Peter Dutton couldn't possibly be doing bad things to people because then he'd be a bad guy. And Pete's not a bad guy. At worst, he's mashed potato.
Lumpy mashed potato.
Oh, God, no one likes that.
No.
That's evil. I got one more story. I don't know if you guys got other stories.
No.
Bring it on.
So the final one I saw this week that I thought was pretty funny, the Chinese Navy last week seized an unmanned underwater drone belonging to the United States that was cruising around the South China Sea. President-elect, which is obviously disputed territory. The Americans say it was in international waters. The Chinese say it's in our territory, but they don't agree on where their territory is. So President-elect Donald Trump took to Twitter to unload on China because who the fuck doesn't want their president just firing
Foreign
random shots?
policy on Twitter, man.
Yeah.
It's the latest thing.
So he accused them of stealing a US research drone and called it an unprecedented act. The Pentagon has called for the return of the research drone. The Pentagon research, that's their bag. They stated that they would like it back and they would like it not to happen again.
Noted climate researchers, the Pentagon.
Yes, noted climate researchers, the Pentagon. They claim that the drone is for collecting data on salinity levels and seawater clarity around China's new islands they're building. Because what you want to know is, are the islands they're building increasing salt water, and could our submarines see accurately if they were to come through here and blow shit up?
Well, and also if they, inadvertently collect sound signatures from noisy Chinese subs,
Yeah.
well, that's just an unexpected.
Oh, it's an accident. It's actually
We
it's
thought it
ruined
was
this data.
We
This
thought it
data
was
is ruined.
whales. We thought it was whales humping.
We just want to differentiate between whales and potential Chinese nuclear subs.
Yeah. So
Or nuclear armed subs, I should say.
in response to Trump, the Chinese authorities claim that they were inspecting what to them was an unidentified object. Now, I should point out that this object is in fact identified. In English on the side, very clearly it says property of the United States government. This is not to be removed from the water. Now, unfortunately, Chinese people don't... Well, I'm guessing, English maybe not their first language. Maybe. I don't know. I've heard that they have their own language. I've heard. I mean, if you're going to send a drone into Chinese territory, maybe write on it in fucking Mandarin. And even then, you got to pull it out of the water, see what it says. Oh, all right, property, I'll put it back then, won't I?
Well, I think you'd have to take it back to central headquarters to get your story
Yeah,
straight.
yeah, it's true. If I was smuggling drugs now, I'm just going to write property of the US government. Please do not remove from my
We
suitcase.
don't want rogue admirals making decisions on the spur of the moment. You need to take it back to the Political Bureau to make an assessment.
So they pulled it out of the water to have a look at it, and they've been in contact with the US. They're going to return it very soon, and clearly the Americans are using this for political points.
I think they're going to return it in one piece
I
at a
hope
time.
in pieces. Hey, I really hope it's in pieces.
Isn't that what they did with that plane?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. They had a plane that landed on Formosa, didn't they, or something like that?
Not Formosa,
No,
because
not
that's
Formosa.
Taiwan. But they did have a plan.
They had an
American
emergency landing.
Yeah, emergency landing in China. They returned it in pieces, disassembled. All of them numbered with plans as to how they go back together. That's the best part. Here's how you build one of your planes.
The IKEA instructions.
Yeah.
Little stick figures of men putting just together.
Yeah, but it's interesting just how much... I mean, Donald's not even in the White House yet, and he's still pretty willing to get on China's bad side. Especially when you're cruising around their
China.
territory, allegedly their territory, with an unmanned drone. Like, you can't just fly drones in other people's countries. You can't drive
So
them in
this
other
is
people's
happening
oceans.
under Obama. I mean, I think anything's going to go under Trump.
Well, but going back to China, it's called the South China Sea. Surely it's got to be all of China's.
Yeah. I think...
It's not China's fault that it also
think-
borders Vietnam,
Philippines.
Philippines.
Yeah.
That's their own
I think if you
problem.
want to cruise a
it's in the
drone
name,
around...
man. It's in the name.
These things should be, it should be like planes have transponders that let you know the signals. If it's really an unclassified drone, it should be broadcasting. Hey, I'm right here. I'm a research drone. It should be public knowledge. Like, it should be like, oh, you can see them. They're on the internet. This is where they are. It didn't do any of that. The Americans they could have done this. They've chosen not to. I'm interested to see what levels they're going to willing to go to antagonize China.
A lot, apparently.
Making phone calls to various...
We're receiving phone calls.
receiving phone calls. Setting up hotel. I mean, it depends on how many hotels that Taiwan wants to let him build, I guess. Is how
I'm
far.
actually one of two things going to happen.
Maybe China should offer to let him build a couple of hotels in China. And
No,
everything would be happy.
I think they should just stand by and let America's economy crash. I'm pretty sure one of two things that happened under Trump. A, America's economy crashes because they raise all these tariffs and all of a sudden their standard of living goes way through the roof. There's not enough jobs and just... Or B, no, there's just A, really. There's just A. And I also think that, this China's going to use this situation and Russia is going to use this situation to improve relations with South America, to improve relations with Canada. Canada's got a free trade agreement with the EU now. Trump's talking about tearing up NAFTA. Fine, do it. There are other trading options available that are arguably better.
Well, BRIC have been setting up their own, so that's Brazil,
Russia,
South America,
India, China, South America.
Yeah.
Speaking of collapsing the American
South
economy,
Africa.
theoretically, China could have done that in the 2008 crash. Obviously, it wasn't beneficial for China at the time to let America crash and burn, so they gave very favourable terms.
They don't want to kill their market.
handouts. Yeah, but I mean, if they could have
Trump
put
killed the market anyway.
they could have put the screws on America back then and really made them hurt.
Yeah.
But they're more than happy to keep selling stuff to them. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, as long as America doesn't start putting these crazy tariff walls up. And if you start playing, politics with trade, I imagine it'll start being played in other directions.
No, I don't think Russia's as big a friend to America as Trump likes to think. The Russians are.
I think one thing you can appreciate about Russia is they generally care about things that happen in their area and not so much elsewhere. I mean, they got dragged into Syria because they had a fucking treaty signed.
They also share a border with Syria, so...
Yeah, I know, but I mean, really...
it's still their area. It's not like they're going... It's not like going across the other side of the world to stage a coup in Chile.
You look at what they did in Syria, and even that's not much. It's not their response could have been a lot more. They've just sent a couple of planes, some aircraft to bomb shit, some troops to help train on the ground, like just what Americans would do for their allies. It's not like they tried to annex territory or anything. And yet, and it seems to be working out for them. So I think Trump understands. Maybe I hope he understands at least that Russia probably doesn't have any aspirations beyond their immediate area.
Well, they may gobble up Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia.
Western Russia. What? Sorry, what are these words you're using?
The lost Baltic states of Russia.
Yeah. Yeah, it may happen. I mean, I don't think it. I don't. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think Putin's willing to fuck with Europe at that level. If you start gobbling up European states, the other European states can be like,
he's grabbed Crimea and half of Ukraine so far.
Yeah, I think you get like a couple of grabs, man, and then eventually people will be like, no, that's not happening. You're not going to stop there.
I'm wondering who's going to stop him.
Well, fucking everyone. Like with Adolf in World War II, right? He started grabbing a few states. People were like, we're going to play the appeasement game. He's just taken a few countries. It's okay. Then he started taking more and more. People were like, oh, fuck's sake. We're all going to have to get together and just bop this one on his head.
Well, maybe, perhaps. I think Putin seems to be playing this rather well. He's getting what he wants when he wants it. So he's done Georgia.
I don't think it suits his interest to have too many Western powers looking into the Western Russia area. Yeah,
Chechnya, the Georgians, Eastern Ukraine, Crimea. So far, he's just whenever he wants it, he grabs it.
But at least, I mean, with the exception of Chechnya, with the bits of Eastern Ukraine he's taken, they did want to be a part of Russia, and it doesn't seem inconceivable.
Sorry, when you say they, you're talking as if a monolith of people there said, Russia, why not?
There has been there have been referendums in the Crimea.
Yeah, there's a significant
many
ethnic group there that don't really care. Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah.
In fact, some probably prefer Russia even. But
again, it's many years referendums indicated that Crimea was more than happy to return to Russia.
Well, Crimea also was part of Russia.
And up until there was a coup in the Ukraine, they were looking to go in the direction of Russia and not the EU either. I kind of feel like there may have been some Western influence in making sure that side got up.
Absolutely, but you still need to draw a line between having a country align themselves with another nation, and then that other nation going, "Oh, we'll just have this part of your country." I know the distinction is fine and very subtle, but
come on, these are just lines on a map. They get redrawn all the time.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Ukraine's only been around for since the 50s. You'll forget it in no time.
Making my point for me. So he grabs Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia and redraws the lines. Oh, what do you know?
Yeah, I think that would be too many.
Would it?
I could be wrong. I feel like it'd be too many.
It's possibly too many, but only because one of them has a NATO base in there. which may actually cause the issue that you're really seeking at this point, is for other people to join in.
But I mean, the equation's always there. How much does the West want to bleed protecting those very, not to be culturally insensitive, but insignificant states from a
no, absolutely.
strategic
But
point of
then
view.
the whole point is when they join NATO, part of the guarantee of NATO is if you are invaded,
but
we will come to your defence.
they still have to honour it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean,
no.
so how much do they value NATO?
What I mean by that is they don't have to honour it if they so choose to.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to force
But that's
them
what I
to
mean.
honour it
How
besides-
much do they value an agreement like
other than
NATO?
other NATO states breaking away from NATO if the treaty is proven to be worthless?
Possibly, but I mean,
Yeah,
but
no,
I think Putin's shown that you're going to get a bloody nose if you try and do
yeah,
anything.
I think
Well, it was pretty
Putin's-
stupid. Anyone
Putin's a
messing around
cagey
with
guy.
Ukraine
He's pretty
Yeah.
smart, and he does when he says something, he means it. You know, and he's proven that a few times now.
And he's not above, rigging an election.
I think he would
Not at all. I'm shaking my head there. I realize we're on radio. I should be like agreeing. Yeah.
he would take another state if prompted to. So something will need to happen for him to roll into Estonia.
And I would like to
You're
point
right.
out,
If America decided they were going to try and align Estonia or Latvia more closely to them, perhaps you go, well, fuck it, I'm going to grab it first.
yeah, what Estonia?
It's a police action.
But you got to remember, it's not like America aren't against interfering with elections overseas or overthrowing governments. Like it doesn't ring true. It rings hollow when they complain about Russian hackers
No.
hacking the DNC.
To some extent, I'm on the side of Russia when it came to that whole Ukrainian issue because that's their sphere of influence. If Russia was dicking around with Canada or Mexico, I think America would be
Or
really
Cuba.
pissed. Or Cuba even more so. It's like they were almost the America instigated the situation in Ukraine by the sounds of it. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
And,
So,
but Putin was like, "Oh, excellent!" He just won up. He said, "You're going to play around with a little bit of politics, well, I'm just going to grab that bit and take it."
But by the way he's taken over parts of Ukraine is the best outcome. He's taken the bits that want to be in Russia and left all the stuff, all the parts that more identify as Ukrainians outside. So it's a win for him. He doesn't have to deal with that part that would cause him continuing
Potentially
problems.
trying to break away, potential resistance fighters. Yeah. No, look, it's. So how do we feel about the current complaints from Americans that the Russians hacked the DNC and released the information?
I think they're making a lot more out of it than
And Barack Obama coming out and saying they need to do something.
Well,
about it.
for one thing, they're using the word hacked very liberally when it comes to this.
Well, they are
It's
liberals.
still yet to be proven definitively that it was a Russian presidential
It's
command
unverified.
to
The
do so.
problem
An
you've got, though,
unverified
is-
story from unnamed sources from
Yeah.
the CIA.
The problem you got is even if the CIA come out and say no, we're sure, they fucking said that about weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah,
in
that's
Iran.
right.
exactly.
They got very little
So
We
credit.
know
credibility
without a
issue
shadow of
going on.
doubt. Well, so you've got no idea then. It's a guess.
Yeah. As I said, I was listening to a podcast and they rattled off. It was like an unverified story from an unnamed source from an undisclosed location.
Yeah.
It was like so many levels of indirection in there. It's just
The thing that bugs me the most about it is that they're currently continuing to, the Democrats particularly, are currently continuing to focus on the fact that there was a hack. Not about what was released. They're focusing very much on the
they're
fact that
also
there was a
like
hack.
everyone in the position of authority there is denying anyone the opportunity to investigate the actual
Yeah.
where the hacks may have taken
It's
place.
another one of their war on whistleblowers. It
Yeah.
shits me to tears. Like all of a sudden, no, we can't look at that information because it was leaked. Well, from the look of some of the information that's been leaked in the past, it should have been public domain anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they completely, it came from Russia. Therefore, completely ignore it, please. Do not look at those emails at all.
Yeah, it's towards the tail end of his presidency. I'm losing some respect for Barack Obama on this issue particularly.
Yeah, I'd already lost a lot of respect for him.
Oh no, I had it in the past as well, but like it's
For a long
just a
time.
disappointing.
I mean,
end.
just recently, it's been one thing after another. Like with the Dakota Access Pipeline, where there's heads being busted, and he's in an interview saying, "Oh, we'll just see how it plays out." It's just bizarre. But he came to the party on that eventually, when the head's going to get kicked in, where eventually veterans' heads possibly.
Yeah, that doesn't play well in the media.
No, and also the fact that Trump's coming into power anyway, so whatever decision Obama makes on this could immediately be overturned by Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm also a little interested how Trump stopped banging that drum about we need to look into the background and what's been leaked, and he's all of a sudden now it's not an election, he doesn't care.
Now that he's won, yeah.
It's changed a lot of positions. I was listening on the Majority Report how some clips they were putting on about how Trump's changed his position on Paul Ryan, who couldn't stand during the run up to the election.
No, of course
and now-
not. He's a great
now
guy.
it's all-
He's a good
it's
man.
guy.
He's a good man.
It's like a fine wine now.
Well, I mean, Paul Ryan changed his position on Trump as well, publicly.
Everyone changed their position on Trump within the Republican Party.
Anyone who wanted.
But I think that's all Donald needs, is that once you go, you know what, I was wrong about Donald Trump, as Paul Ryan. Donald Trump's like, well, I'm a big enough man to admit I was wrong about you too, Paul.
There's sound of what's his name, Ted Cruz, calling Trump a pathological liar with absolutely no engagement at all with the truth. And then they showed an image of him making phone banking for Trump during the general election. Everyone changed their opinion.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting 4 years, his presidency.
Yes. And an interesting lame duck session for Obama, because it doesn't seem like he's going to do much at all.
He hasn't done much at all.
Oh, I'm out.
I'm done.
That's the show. Thanks for listening. I've been Franco.
Been Jason.
I've been Commandant Dean.